Why don't you sing us a Luton song real quick, just to make sure it sounds good, Dan?
I admit I don't know any FC Dallas songs.
How about this one? But my old man said, be a Watford fan. I said, fuck off, bollocks, you're a cunt, have a banana.
Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan, and welcome to another episode of Third Degree, the podcast. Hi, I'm Peter, and it is back to the normal trio today. Myself, and of course, our favorite Englishman, Dan Crook. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, Peter. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me. Sorry I missed the debut pod last week. Please forgive me.
Yeah, maybe in a few weeks.
What place is Luton Town in these days since we last talked?
Well, we are in the EFL Championship, where we are dead last.
Ah, congratulations. Relegation in your future. And that knowing agreement nod sound in the background is none other than our fearless leader, founder and editor of thirddegree.net, Buzz. Come in, Buzzard.
Hello, Peter. Usually I make a joke about where I'm calling in from, but I wanted today to say instead that it's Fernando Clavijo's birthday today that we're recording, so I did not know him really well, but the times I did talk to him, I found him to be open and honest and a joyful human being, and so that's a loss that he's no longer around this planet. Anyway, happy birthday, Fernando.
Okay, boys, here we are. It has finally been announced, and it is happening. Franco Jara, or is it Jara? Do we know?
Well, he's Argentine, so we think it's Jara, but I don't know
It's
for
supposed
sure.
to be Jara, but the press release said Jara, but Dan Hunt said Jara.
So I'm going to guess
But
it's
Dan
Jara.
Hunt says a lot of things, so who knows?
Right. Okay, so I'm going to ask each of you, if you had to describe your reaction to this signing and all of the details we found out about the signing after the fact, what meme would you use to best describe your reaction? Buzz?
Probably, it was sort of a wide-eyed surprise at how much the Hunts say he's going to be paid, which is the highest paid player in franchise history. So when we've been talking about striker here for years, and Oscar talked about it for years, and Lucia's talked about it, and what they always say is they're expensive. You got to pay for them. So I was surprised to see them stretch themselves in this small way by going with a really high-paid player. The downside, the not so exciting part, is that they're going to wait till the summer. I do have something to add on that.
All right, well, hold on one sec.
Hold
on. Let's ask Dan that same question. Dan, what meme or GIF would you use to describe your reaction to the signing and the details?
Well, of course, our good friend John Leonard is the pope of all memes, so I would have to consult him. But my first reaction was the gif of any contestant in the history of RuPaul's Drag Race or any reality TV show waving their hands in the air going, yes!
All right.
Okay.
I love
very specific.
That. Yes, that's very good. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Mr. Jara. We're just going to go with Jara for the sake of consistency, at least in this pod, or until I'm told otherwise. He is coming from Pachuca, but the question I have is, on the heels of Clark Hunt announcing this surprisingly early when he was doing his interview on the ticket with Corby and all the other things, were we at all disappointed or let down by the news that he won't be here until July?
Well, a little bit. Dan Hunt did mention that in the press conference they had with him, when he specifically mentioned Jara, that they tried to buy Jara in 2018 for what he called a, quote, multi-million-dollar offer, and Pachuca said no. So they've convinced the player to come now, and it may be that Pachuca is refusing to let him go earlier. I know from Andre Zanata that FC Dallas is currently negotiating with Pachuca to try and get him released earlier. So cross your fingers that happens, but it's not surprising when this player is valued, even now is valued on the websites around at $3.5 million. It's not surprising that the Hunts who are notoriously
the who?
Frugal. Sorry, go ahead.
But no, I said, who did you just called them the punts?
Hunts,
Yeah,
the
they
Hunts.
punt the ball.
Oh.
I probably just didn't articulate it well. The Hunts.
I thought you said punts, which was
No,
pretty
no,
funny.
no, I didn't mean to.
Let's
Yeah,
be
the
honest,
punts.
that's not the worst way you could have messed that one up.
That's right.
Yeah. The punts, no. The Hunts are not likely, as we know of them, to spend $3.5 million hypothetically for 4 months of work. So there's a diminishing return, of course. The longer it goes, the less money Pachuca gets. So as long as they can, the window closes on May 7th, I think. So there's a whole big window at the front of the season, and his contract expires basically at that same time. So if, there's a possibility they can get him early, and we'll see. But if they had to wait for the summer, worse things have happened. Obviously, it's not ideal, though.
All right, Dan, your reaction to all this?
I mean, it's it's unfortunate, but when you see the Mexican press are talking about Pachuca trying to hold him out for $5 million for a guy who, no one rates at $5 million for one, and secondly, why would you pay $5 million for what's essentially a 4-month loan? It's unfortunate, but I'm glad they're at least, finally sealed that striker that I've been waiting 5 years for.
Okay. So
Yeah, if this was 3 or 4 years ago and he was 27, we'd be dancing in the streets. But it's the Hunts, so he's 31. And it's what when we're living in the bubble of the Hunts. As much as we wish they acted like other teams, they don't. So this was, I think, as good as you're going to get from the Hunts in terms of finding a 9 and paying for a 9.
So it does lead me to ask the question, in a globe filled with soccer players, how did they end up with this guy? Are we to essentially believe that nowhere in the global soccer universe there is another player of equal level who was available for some agreeable price today? Especially with Zanata's supposed connections down in Brazil.
The short answer is, since he trashed FC Dallas in the CONCACAF Champions League, they've basically been trying to get him. So, the Hunts, probably Dan specifically, has effectively fallen in love with this player, and that was the one they've been after for 2 or 3 years now. So it is a fair criticism that there are, as we always say, it's a global market. There's probably millions of players out there. So it just depends on how extensive a scouting network you have and how good your connections are. And in this particular case, it seems that Dan Hunt just really had his eye and really wanted this player for a couple of years now.
I'd like to play Peter for a moment.
Whoa.
So we know that FC Dallas scouting has not been amazing. Brought in an international scouting director. He is, 5 days a week a youth coach, so not really getting out and scouting a whole lot. Scouting in general hasn't been amazing. We know that Andrasek was scouted by MLS rather than the club. And now we know that the new striker, although, he's got a great scoring rate, seems like a great talent, arguably as important for FC Dallas as Chicharito is for LA Galaxy. And just when you take into account that huge sliding scale of one tiny club and one massive one. But your owners just scouted out your new big signing. That's very Jerry Jones-like.
Yeah, I if in fact this comes down to, hey, we saw him score against us in a Champions League game and we've wanted him ever since, yet we weren't willing to pay for him, and now we're getting him on a free, that all does kind of, temper any particular enthusiasm about the guy. Part of the reason why I think some of this can, look, everybody who is a fan of this team can take this signing however they choose. They can feel really positive about it. They can be skeptical about it. But in terms of just asking questions, right? Like, that's all I really want to do is just ask the question is, we've all been told, and it wasn't just by Oscar Pereira, but by Dan Hunt and other people associated with the club, as part of the reason why they don't really like summer signings is because it takes so long for players to acclimatize to the system, to the weather, and all of those things. And Oscar specifically pointed out that that's an issue with South American players. And so I wonder why That's changed in this particular instance. He also turns 32 about the time he arrives, and he will be coming off on the heels of a lengthy season. So, hopefully he doesn't get injured between now and then. So, in comparison to other clubs that have made signings recently, and we'll set the Chicharito one aside because that's just exponentially different in every way, shape, and form, I do think there is a fair reason to look at this and not be, bowled over and be over the moon about it. And it's okay not to be over the moon about it. And if you choose to be super excited and think this is the number 9 solution, I guess that's okay too.
Yeah, there's certainly reasons to not be excited about it. I try and come back to the idea that he is still productive at a high level in a super competitive, really talented league. So that's a really bright signing. And they have tried to pay for him before, according to FC Dallas, and Pachuca just has turned them down. So it's still just a question of how much they're willing to spend versus when you can get him. I think he'll be here before the summer, but it is an interesting question that. Because they have talked about how they don't like the summer acquisitions, which makes it hard because it's harder to get guys into what the rest of the world is the middle of the season. That makes it really difficult. That's one of MLS's problems in terms of, and that's why they end up always selling in the middle of their season because that's the off season for everybody else. So it's not a great solution, but it is a Hunt style solution. And I'm, as always, I try and be hopeful and reserve judgment until I actually see him in training and see how he looks, but I like the production and I like the pedigree. So age aside, those are positives.
Yeah, I tried to think about making a comparison. If another club from another country came in and bought the 10th highest player in the goal scoring table in MLS in any particular year, let's use last year as an example, what would that represent? So if I told you that pick any club in the world had decided they were going to sign a striker for MLS who is currently 10th in the scoring at the end of 2019 and to sign them, who do you think that player would be?
I have no idea, but is it Jesus Ferreira?
No, but I mean, Dan, do you know who it is?
Tesho Akindele?
No, it's CJ Sapong. So
he's a pretty good player.
Yeah. So that you see where I'm going with this, which is I don't watch Liga MX on the regular. I may pop it on little bits here and there, and I don't pretend to be any sort of expert in that league or what Franco Jara means to that league. Which leads me, just quick side question. Has anybody seen John Arnold's reaction to this deal at all? Has he said anything publicly? Because if there's one person who I think could absolutely nail it in terms of what this means, good, bad, or indifferent, it's the guy that covers Liga MX and FC Dallas, and I don't think I've seen anything from him.
He has not. He just got back from vacation, so he hasn't mentioned it.
Interesting.
I will say something. I just went back and I looked at the scoring charts, and Jara is actually he's 8th for the last season, ahead of Andre Pierre Gignac, which is actually kind of impressive.
Is he 8th? I thought I looked at it the other day, and I thought he was.
He's joint 8th, so it's 8, 9, and 10, all on 7 goals.
All right, so I want to check this with you guys, and just kind of doing some really basic internet Googling and reading on forum boards and stuff. This is the scouting report I hear about Jara. One is that I think, if I'm doing my math correct, 20 to 25% of all the goals he's scored for Pachuca have been penalty kicks. Apparently, he is a supreme penalty kick taker. That would be number one, so take that as you will. The other is that he is pretty notorious for flubbing really, really good opportunities and actually converting the more difficult ones. I've read that in several places. Does that cotton with anything you guys have heard as a scouting report?
No, not specifically, no.
Anything different that you guys have heard about him?
Well, just that he was a prototypical box kind of striker. A lot like Cobra in that regard, but that also he's likes to take people on, so he can come from wide and dribble at people too, and is good in both combination and just sort of in fighting and clawing. From the description that Lucci gave, he sounds like the kind of striker that I think Pepe could be. So It'll be nice, if nothing else, if he can mentor Pepe for a couple of years. That'll be good. But yeah, I mean, in a Hunt world, this is the bargain version of the striker that they need. So hopefully, it'll be better than Cobra, because that's the measurement, right? As long as he's better than Cobra.
And I guess some of it will depend on how quickly he gets here and what he produces with the remaining time in the season once he actually gets here. Dan, did you have any other particular scouting reports on the guy that maybe we haven't gotten into?
Nothing major. Kind of gather he's a bit of a hothead. He's got 7 red cards across his career. Actually, the past the 2 half seasons. Sorry, I know jack about Mexican football. He's played every game except for the 2 he was suspended from getting sent off. So 2 red cards in a pretty short time there.
It's particularly interesting to me they gave him a 3-year deal plus options. So you're looking at 32 to 35, and then if they want to keep him 36, 37, I mean that's crazy.
Yeah,
so.
I this is one of those FC Dallas spins that I get frustrated by, because when they made the announcement, a lot was being made out of biggest signing ever, and what I want to make sure everybody understands is that there's 2 aspects to that. The Hunts have once again signed a player without spending a transfer fee. Now, they certainly have done that in the past. They did it with Brian Acosta and even with Thiago Santos. I guess they paid like $1 million for him. But they have now signed they didn't pay any money to get Andrezic, did they?
No, he was his club had defaulted on his contract.
Right. So we've got if we can all at least at the very least agree that the number 9 position is like the number 1 thing we need to fix, or they need to fix. They've once again signed a guy that they didn't pay a transfer fee for. The claims of highest salary ever, we all know, right, is a rather low bar when it comes to Dan and Clark Hunt. Like they've barely broken the $1 million barrier previously with anybody in the club. So if they end up telling us they're paying him even $2 million a year, while that may be a tall number for Dan and Clark, that is nothing compared to multiple other clubs within the league.
Yeah, just for comparison argument, Funes Mori from Monterrey is reportedly available for $10 million and 27 prime of his career. So, it is what it is in the sense that we know the Hunts are never going to spend like that. Their version of spending like that is a longer contract than you should probably give a 32-year-old, 31-year-old. So hopefully they don't get saddled with this contract for when the player's done and dusted after 2 seasons.
All right, so I'm going to ask you guys to totally speculate before you even see this guy step on the field, a practice field for FC Dallas. Do either one of you have a gut feeling what his what kind of result we're going to see out of Franco Jara in the 2020 season?
Yeah, I think even if he doesn't come to July, I think he'll break the 10-goal barrier. Even in that short, July, August, September, October. I think 4 months is enough for him to break 10-goal barrier.
Dan, do you think he is the number 9 striker that the club has been looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's got a knack of scoring. Even if a quarter of those goals come from the penalty spot, it's just something that the club hasn't really had since Blas Perez, and he should be the first guy in a long time. By the time 2021 rolls around, to get past 15 in a season.
Yeah, and I think this is a good opportunity to bring up the big news. And by the way, and nobody's really talked about this too much, and I don't necessarily blame anybody for this, but the fact that they made the announcement of their quote-unquote biggest contract deal ever by FC Dallas happening on the same day that the LA Galaxy announced Chicharito is about peak right. FCD as it ever could possibly be. So let's talk about the big news about Chicharito. I watched his press conference today. I thought he was super impressive. But if there is one thing that I do wonder, especially if you try to compare Jara and Chicharito, is I'm not 100% sure anybody can look at you in the eye and tell you they exactly know what they're getting in terms of Chicharito, a guy who hasn't played very much dating back to, I don't know, before he signed with West Ham because he wasn't playing regularly with them, and he certainly wasn't playing with Sevilla. At least with Jara, you've got a guy that will arrive here maybe with some miles and wear and tear in terms of recent activity, but I think you're going to get an idea of at least what kind of form he's in by the time he gets here. So if you're trying to think about a comparison to those two things, I think that's a positive in comparison for the signing.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since Chicharito's been a consistent player and been in consistent form. You balance the risk reward with him because of the fact that of his off-field impact, where they sold twice as many tickets in the same time frame as Zlatan did after they signed Chicharito. So I mean, he's already having crazy impact. The video of him arriving at the airport was just ridiculous. So that side balances. I mean, he's a transcendent star in the Mexican community, and they badly needed that. With everything LAFC is doing, the LA Galaxy really needed somebody like that, to make a buzz, particularly for the Hispanics. And if Chicharito is healthy, I think he's perfectly good enough to produce at a high level in MLS. The question is, can he stay healthy at his age and play a full schedule? And that I'm not so sure of because he hasn't done it in several years.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of part and parcel of most of your career transfers being related more to shirt sales than your talent. They say, one good thing with Jara is, he's playing 90 minutes every week, and you can see him score and you can see him contributing. Javier Hernandez has, got so many splinters up his ass, he don't know what to do right now.
I think I was surprised, although I shouldn't have been, when Taylor Twellman tweeted out the news today that he was told, or that it was revealed that LA stated that there had been no discovery rights placed on Chicharito, meaning that they didn't have to go through any other MLS team, FC Dallas or Chicago or San Jose, some other place that you think would love to have Chicharito. Nobody had placed discovery rights on him, and I think in Taylor's case, he was using that as an opportunity to kind of knock Chicago for not even trying. But I think you could make the same argument for multiple clubs across the league.
Yeah, maybe people had read his quotes where he said he would never come to MLS as being legitimate, which obviously they weren't, but. And the price tag too. That's a surprising one. You only get a certain amount, at least you used to. It's been a long time since anyone's talked about 10. That rule. It was 10 now. It used to be 6. So you only have a certain amount you can file, and if you have guys that you are legitimately from your academy or something, like I'm operating on an assumption that FC Dallas has one on Chris Kappas, for example. So it's not shocking that some people didn't want to waste one quote unquote on Chicharito, but it is in a way surprising that nobody had one. Even LA Galaxy should have had one, I would have thought.
Yeah. Well, I do wish they had been successful in finding somebody that they felt was worth spending money on to have them ready for the start of the season. I do worry that that will come back to haunt them over the course of a season without knowing anything else about this team. I'm just, history tells us mid-season signings typically don't make big impacts for teams, especially ones that are trying to win cups and get deep into playoff runs. But we'll see.
That's true, but we're not into predictions yet. But I don't know that any of us are ready to call this a cup season. So it's maybe they're looking at 2021 as the target.
All right.
I mean, do you feel like it is?
No. I don't. But that drives me nuts that we're.
Yeah. I know, but sometimes we have to live in the world as it is.
All right. Well, let's move away. So we've covered the Jara signing, congratulations, and the Chicharito news. Nothing else particular about that. What I really want to get into is the fact that Dan and Buzz both have attended FC Dallas camp, which kicked off this week. Dan, you went first early, so I'm going to let you start off with some observations from the camp.
Well, what do I start with? Obviously, we've seen that Jacori Hayes has been transferred. He was strolling around in his practice gear, not doing a whole lot. Later on, joined by Paxton Pomykal. We know Paxton came back from the national team camp with a quote-unquote groin issue. So I asked Lucci about it, and we'd speculated, is it related to the hamstring? Is it related to the hernia operation last year? And he was like, yep, it's the hernia operation. So was the hamstring. he's got some scar tissue that he's dealing with. They anticipate that he'll be back fully fit in the next week or so, I think. For anyone that hasn't dealt with scar tissue, it sucks because it builds up on its own. You have to work it out, whether that's ultrasound, massage, lasers, whatever. And it's just gonna be maintenance. It's obviously in a very sensitive area. Around the groin.
Lasers in a very sensitive area, no less.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to do that. Likewise, if you did ultrasound, that's like pretty severe heat in a place you don't want to have all that. So
don't put icy hot on your twig and berries.
But that is really fun to put over someone's clothes in the locker room after a game.
Wow.
Yeah. So he should be back fit and just dealing with that. I don't know if they're anticipating it to last long. I know, scar tissue can be one of those like things that hangs about for a couple of years.
Has anybody talked to Pax? Either of you?
I tried to, but he made a quick exit.
I did. I talked to him.
All right. So what did Pax tell you, Buzz?
That he feels pretty good, other than the scar tissue issue. Essentially,
he put icy hot on his twig and berries.
No. But he was moving pretty good in his rehab running that he was doing, and he obviously is mad, not at someone, but if you know Paxton, how competitive he is, he's super mad that he cannot be involved. And he's running with a pissed off look on his face that he's doing this jogging around the field, but he is moving pretty good. And it's just a question of working, as Dan said, working through something that happens with everybody that has this procedure. So it's no big deal. And he's actually really positive other than that, and really excited, and is growing some kind of little beard action there. I don't know if he's trying to man up a little bit or what, but that could just be preseason scruff, I guess.
And we're still awaiting the arrival of the other signing of the offseason, which is Thiago Santos. That is a paperwork legal thing, correct?
Yeah, that's something else I spoke to Lucci about. Just waiting for his visa. Obviously with the political climate and everything, visas are taking longer and longer. Somebody did tell me they were expecting it to be like 2 weeks. Although Lucci then said he expects it to be about a week. They've been working on a plan with him. Van der Salas, the athletic trainer, has been in touch with a physical plan. I did wonder if he'd been training even with Palmeiras, but Lucci said, he's been getting some reps in with a local group, but he couldn't comment who. Obviously there's kind of a cliff there because he was playing right up until the transfer went through. I think 2 days before it went through, and to go from that kind of that level of activity to not a whole lot is a bit tough. So hopefully the plan will have him good, and we'll still have 5 weeks of preseason left.
Unless, or he's been hanging out at one of those Brazilian steakhouses, just chowing down,
getting fat, yeah,
getting all that meat.
I mean, I was planning on calling him from Fogo de Chao next week, to be honest.
All right, well, that's a good idea. So, Buzz, this is what I really want to know from you. I haven't attended any of the practices. I'm gonna ask this question as a nerdy fan. What's really the vibe? You've been to so many. Both of you, I can ask this question because you guys are around the team all the time. You've been to multiple preseason camps with different coaches and different players. I really want a sense of, after the times you've been there this week, do you have a sense of the vibe of the team yet and kind of the mood and the attitude of the team?
Tuesday was interesting, actually. Usually this early in the season, there's some guys that are not super excited to be out there, and usually there's some guys that are fighting for spots. But this year the team is pretty much already set in terms of like the senior roster. The only guys that are really battling for spots are the draft picks. Everyone else sort of has this let's get down to business kind of mentality. And the competition that is on display is actually just for starting. Almost every position on the field now, Lucci has at least one guy, at least two guys, if not three guys in some situations that are competing to start. So it was actually kind of a very business-like, very focused vibe first day. Everyone seems really positive and upbeat inside that, but definitely was like a lot of time. Spring training, I think, is 2 weeks shorter this year. So a lot of times in the past, the first week or two has been a lot of clowning around, if you're not a draft pick or whatever. But it wasn't like that this time. This time it was right out of the gate, super focused. And I really liked that, actually. I was really impressed by that. And it helps, of course, that Lucci's in his second year now. So everybody now knows what to expect, and everybody knows where they stand. So compared to last year when everyone had questions on their mind, now everyone is like content, and they know what they are, and they know what they're doing, and they're getting to work. So that's kind of nice, actually.
I was just say, I think it just kind of helps as well. They came in and knew exactly what they were doing. On Monday, it was run through a warm up. It wasn't joking around. It was, hey, everyone's taking a lap at Toyota Soccer Center. A lot of rondos,
The whole
a lot
center?
of rotating drills.
The entire center?
Well, at least a few of the pitches.
Oh, I was going to say, that's a long-ass run.
Yeah, I don't think they're going right up the very end of it. But, straight into some rondos, rotating drills. Everyone's keeping busy. There's not really a whole lot of downtime in between when people start playing around. And, there's a couple of... you've got some of the guys like Carlos Grueso, a great locker room leader, but he was also one of the guys that just liked having a joke, and that you kind of don't have that right now. You've got guys that like joke about, but they're not like
pranksters.
Yeah, I guess that's probably the best way to put it. And then there's also, we're that early into preseason that there aren't any trialists in yet, so there's not those kind of breaks in the sessions.
It really helps that over the last 10 years or so, they've really migrated to this complete off-season protocol where, and Matt had just talked to me about this over the winter, is like you have to show up day one already in great shape. And he said you have to be in better shape than you were during the season when you walk in day one. And it used to be that you would spend 2 weeks getting in shape. And he said you can't do that anymore. Now you have to come in tip-top health and tip-top shape, or you won't be left behind in a hurry.
All right, so you guys have seen some training sessions, correct? Like actual activity. All right, we're gonna play a game, everybody. You ready?
That's concerning.
No,
sure.
This is gonna be fun.
Okay.
All right, we're gonna do flash round. Each of you have the opportunity to name me one player that has impressed you in your time you have seen. One player, and that's it. Can't do it. Buzz, you go first.
Okay, Fafa Pico.
Dan?
Shit, that was my answer.
I know. Yeah.
It's okay.
Cal Jennings is a lot further along than I thought he was going to be from the early part I did see.
All right, perfect. Buzz, let's start with you. I'm fascinated to hear more about slow feet don't eat. I got to hear more about this cat.
Well, for one thing, he's tiny. I mean, he's
is?
he's Michael Barrios in height, but without Michael Barrios' muscle. So that was actually surprising.
So he's a 12-year-old boy is what you're telling me.
Yeah, whatever they listed him at is a lie. There's no way. If it says he's 5'8", there's no chance. I don't know how tall he is really, but I'm going to look it up really fast since I said
So
that.
your assignment the next time either one of you go to practice is to take a picture of the two of them standing next to each other, please.
Okay, he's tiny. So the second thing is right away, instantly, you can tell that he's a legitimate player, and even in the small samples I've seen him, he makes a difference in the training in the sense that like he elevates whatever is around him. So he's an impactful player right away, and he has a really quick burst. He's great ball, plays head up. So I haven't seen him in a full field game. We're only talking about small sided stuff, but he stands out already, which is fantastic because sometimes even regular MLS players don't stand out, and he stood out. So that's exciting.
All right, Dan, why don't you tell everybody about Cal?
There's not a whole lot really to tell. We've seen
him.
Buzz talk. Okay, well we've seen Buzz talk about him for UCF. In practice, really, all I've really been able to see of him is that he's kind of ready to go. He's in his reps. He's not taking a breather and kind of looking a bit flustered like some of the other draft picks are. He's not misplacing his passes or mistiming his tackles. He's just straight on it, the most pro ready.
Yeah, let me add on to that. That like the way he carries himself, he is clearly comfortable in the scenario, as opposed to all the other rookies looked panicked. And as Dan says, he makes really nice with his feet when the ball comes in. He obviously is a great box poacher. If he has to go wide and run, that's at somebody that's not quite as good. That'll take some time to work out. And he does make interesting decisions. Like when the ball would come into him, a lot of times I'm thinking, oh, he's going to turn this way, and then he would turn the other way. And so occasionally he makes interesting passing and interesting choices about what he's doing, and that always intrigues me, a guy that thinks slightly differently than other players. That's always good to see.
All right, let's play the flash game again. Dan, Buzz, name the one player who you went, I'm not so sure about that. Dan?
Don't want to say it because he's a nice guy, but Nkosi Burgess.
Okay,
Yeah,
Buzz?
Dan stole mine too.
No, it could be the same guy. It's okay.
Okay, I'm going
Unless
to say
there's
the
somebody
same
else
guy.
you want to throw under the bus.
No, I'm going to say the same guy,
All right.
actually.
Tell us why about whatever.
Go ahead, Dan.
A guy whose
Obviously-
name I clearly don't need to learn how to pronounce because he's not going to be here very long.
No,
I
he
mean,
will be, actually.
He will be. It's kind of like how Walker Zimmerman was in his first couple of seasons. Complete athletic talent who's got to really get the headspace for the game and the skill set of the game. Day one was a lot of passing, a lot of possession based stuff, and that is not his strong point at all. Struggled a lot with
That's
passing.
a problem, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
And, we saw that with Callum Montgomery last year, and he's improved a lot. Actually, he looked really good in practice on Monday. It's just, he was visibly flustered. I was talking to, I think, Cal Jennings or Fafa Pico, one or the other. And, he was kind of huffing and kind of like head was down. And, Lucci was there like picking him up and saying, hey, look, we're going to have all individual meetings. Everyone's going to get individual targets. It's day one. It's day one of however many. It's, this isn't the end of the road. This isn't anything. I hope he's not a player that gets in his own head and doesn't need picking up too much. Lucci definitely is one of those coaches who'll put his arm around a player and pick him up, but obviously his job's a lot easier if he doesn't have to do that after every session. Early days yet, but we've seen with Walker Zimmerman that players who are just a physical specimen can pick up the skills and the mentals for the game.
And what position is he?
He's a center back.
Yeah, he's a center back. He's 6'5", really fast, big,
cow.
strong, like Gooch, intimidating, scary. I watched him shift out and play right back, where he was completely out of comfort. His feet are good, so that's a good place to build from. But in terms of like Lucci ball build out, he's got no clue what to do with the ball. He can only basically like pass it back to the other defender again. And his defensive instincts are mostly good, but occasionally misfires. So they drafted him to be a long-term project, and he's definitely a long-term project. But there's lots of things about him to get excited about. But in terms of like day one, and I saw him on day two, he definitely is not up to the level right now.
All right.
It definitely reminds me of Walker Zimmerman because like when he came in, he was kind of hopeless. He was still having his every game brain fart really up until he left Dallas. And now
he still has him in LA, don't worry.
Well, I mean, like it used to be at least two a game, and one would result in a goal. I mean, now at least he's picking it up. He's a Defender of the Year finalist. He's regular with the U.S. national team now. He's elevated himself, and I'm sure they're looking and saying, okay, well, let's do that again.
All right. Well, we'll designate Mr. Burgess as the official adoptee of Third Degree, and we'll be rooting for him to succeed. How about that?
Yeah.
Plus, his purple hair is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, that is pretty kick-ass. Okay, any other particular notes from camp that we need to discuss before we move on to other more important things?
I'm trying to think if there's any. There's a couple of North Texas
Really?
guys there that are doing well. That's about all I got.
All right. Any particular skills or drills or shots on goal or saves or skill moves?
Rondo.
Oh, it's just
Yeah,
rondos. All right.
it's tons of small ball passing and movement to small space. Like they did a 6v6 is the biggest they've done so far. It's just it's way early. It's fundamentals still. The first
Especially-
full game action is Saturday morning.
Actually, is one thing is kind of nice to highlight. It's not necessarily the soccer side of things, but when you speak to every player, when you speak to Lucci, everyone emphasizes this whole family atmosphere from the draftees to the guys who've been around forever. It's it kind of goes towards that atmosphere of everyone knowing when to get down to work and having a great relationship. It's not like, I remember a few years ago it was very cliquey. You had the Argentine and Colombian guys, you had the English speaking guys, and they were off doing their own things. Now everyone's kind of like actually really gelled together.
Interesting. All right. That's a good note. Thank you, Dan, for sharing that. There are some players missing due to national team call-ups. Anything to report? We saw some video footage of Jesus out there. We've seen some interview footage of Reggie. Anything about that we want to discuss on the pod?
Oh yeah, I do. I noticed on the Jesus video that they posted, he had an intensity and focus that I really liked about the video that they showed of him playing, which I was really pleased to see. But I also got a report from an FC Dallas staffer, because they talked to the national team staff, and apparently they got back a scouting report from that Jesus, who's been playing as a 9, by the way, for the U.S. national team. That Berhalter has really likes him, and that he's having a fantastic camp. So it's great to hear that at a step up level, because the U.S. national team is a step up, that Jesus is performing so well, and he is just 18 years old. I don't think he's even 19 yet. So, or no, he just turned 19 like a couple weeks ago. That's right. That's super exciting to see a guy get his first taste of the national team and then blossom like that.
He can't play yet for them, though. Am I up to date on that? He's still waiting for whatever.
No, he's good now. He finally got his citizenship. He's good.
So he may play in the game against Costa Rica.
Yeah, I would expect him to.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be very exciting. Anything about Reggie you guys want to talk about? Are they selling him anytime soon? Have we heard anything on news about them moving Reggie?
Last I heard was that they don't have an offer that meets their valuation yet. But if you watch the interview that Reggie did from national team camp, where he got asked like 5 times about moves and where his mind is and all that stuff, he kept smiling and grinning knowingly, as if, oh yeah, we all know this is coming. So I just, at this point, if it doesn't happen like in the next, like right after he leaves national team camp and plays this next game, if it doesn't happen right after that, then I don't think it'll happen until the summer. Because there's not enough time, if it doesn't happen like in the 2 weeks before the season starts.
But did I hear from the press conference, Dan or somebody said that they're actually considering signing him to a new deal to stay here in Dallas?
Oh yeah, that was from the press conference when I asked about Reggie's situation. They said that they're trying very hard to re-sign him because he has this year's an option and next year's an option at basically the number he signed with out of the academy, not out of academy, out of UCLA. So they're trying to give him a bigger valuation. But part of the reason you want to do that though is because if you pay him more, then you can sell him for more.
Right.
So it's all part of it. If he has a longer contract, he's costs more to get. And be honest, look, he's a good player. If he was focused on here, and even he says he is, but that's not the same thing. If we knew he wanted to be here, we knew he was locked in, everyone would love to have that kid for 5 years. But I think with the World Cup 2 years away, that he's got his eye on a big move so he can compete. Because in the interview, he specifically mentions competing with Yedlin, competing with Durst at Ajax, and competing with the kid at Red Bull. Adams. So, he knows that he's got to get to a bigger stage.
All right. So it is the warm and gooey center of Third Degree. It is the kit. We actually got another sneak today, which essentially confirmed what we've known all along. The new Dallas home shirt will at the very least feature the very weird and creepy military 3 shoulder stripes that we're starting to see in other shirts, but we don't, or do we know anything else about what we're going to end up seeing on the 5th or 6th of February when the league reveals all of them?
What we do know is that Ryan Hollingshead wore white shorts at Media Day, and he wore red socks that had a blue cuff, if you're into that kind of detail. The shoulders of this thing look red, which is a change because obviously the top is blue now on the current one. So
that was white, wasn't it?
The sleeves are
the
blue.
The sleeves are blue. The shoulders are white. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
So, and then the fabric pattern has the same one that the Minnesota United teases do. And the Minnesota United teases, you can see that there's some sort of image. That they showed a wider picture, so you can see there's some sort of image. So what we don't know, that's basically it's a red top with white highlights. What we don't know is there any blue highlights, and is there some kind of image or sublimation going on the red part, other than what looks like white shorts and red socks?
Yeah, because they are doing a little bit of sublimation. We've seen the mock-ups of the RSL one, which looks like some crazy drug trip. Real Salt Lake have not Real Salt Lake, sorry. Orlando City have a white one with like a purple lion on it. The honeycomb thing on the material is on every one of those with the shoulder stripes, just as part of that template. But we've also heard from a couple of people that there's blue on it, so we'll guess we have to just see where that is.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. First off, you mentioned the Minnesota one. Man, if they put the big, large vertical wing back on that shirt that used to exist back in their USL day, that'll be a huge win. That was always one of my favorite designs. I hope that's back on there. The loon wing, that was fantastic. And again, I think we've all finally decided that Advocare is still the shirt sponsor. There's no reason to believe that that's changing, although we thought maybe it was with their whatever that big change in their business was.
Yeah, there was a lot of hints that it was changing, but the bottom line is that Advocare has a deal through 2020. So until we hear some report in like the Business Journal or something, or from FC Dallas that they've bought out that contract, I mean, are the Hunts going to buy out a contract? Mm-hmm. No.
Oh, honestly, I mean, speaking to people from the club like through the whole thing, even before that sale, they were like, "There's a year on the contract. No one's paying a penny."
Yeah. Interesting.
No one's paying to get out of it.
Now, am I wrong, Buzz, that you mentioned something about wanting hoops in this new design, and somebody related to the team replied to you in a tweet that you won't be disappointed?
What I said was, I hope it's not solid red top, because that will be disappointing. And if it is solid red, at least give me white shorts to pop it up a little bit. And the person said you won't be disappointed. So I took from that to mean that there's some sort of pattern or design other than just solid red. So that I'm optimistic that it is, because that was what I. Well, I said I'd be disappointed with solid red jersey. So I was hoping that that's what his response was to. I mean, I'm choosing to try and take it the way I want it to be, right? So he may have just meant the white shorts and the picture from. What we do know is that Ryan Hollingshead wore white shorts at media day, and he wore red socks that had a blue cuff. If you're into that kind of detail, the shoulders of this thing look red, which is a change because obviously the top is blue now on the current one. So
that was white, wasn't it?
So I'm just still hoping out that the pattern is the one I saw from the new Germany jersey, which is the pattern that looks like the old Dallas Burn, what I call hoop stripes, not hoop stripes.
Pin hoops.
Pin hoops. That's the word.
Yeah.
Like pinstripes, call them pin hoops. Like that. That would be nice. But until we get another hint, we're just guessing.
Okay, so we will vacate things related to FC Dallas and move on to North Texas Soccer Club real briefly. Buzz, you got an opportunity to go check out the new Globe Life Park. Free for all, whatever that they're calling that thing now, circus. Are the pyramids still in there?
I don't know what the pyramids are.
Oh, there was some sort of like rave light show festival where these giant pyramids were in. Now maybe they're outside the stadium.
That was outside, yeah.
I thought they were inside.
No.
All right. So tell us about the new turf field. Remember, everybody, it's not grass and the new alignment and all that stuff.
Well, I confirmed with Matt Denny that the markings are temporary, so it'll be clean green for North Texas SC. But I did walk on the field, and it is amazing. It is the spongiest, best turf I've ever been on in my life. Now, I hate turf. So for me to say that this turf is amazing, I think that really should tell you something. And Eric Quill said it's the best turf he's ever seen, too. So they paid high dollar for as good turf as you can get. Now, is it exactly like grass? No. But it is honestly the best turf I've ever seen. It is as close to real grass as I've ever seen. It is phenomenal. Now, do we all wish it was grass? Of course we do. But this is as good as it's going to get in the meantime. And seeing all the North Texas signage everywhere and all over the big jumbotrons and all that was great. The new bleacher that's built over the old outfield is right there tight on the sideline. There's like 10 yards of space on one side and maybe 5 to 15 on the other because it's kind of curved. But and the verticality of the seats, it's a nice tight feel, and that's really nice. Now, of course, it's a big, huge, gigantic building that's way too big for North Texas SC, but again, in the context of what it is, the turf is great, and the things come into shape quite nicely, I think, relatively speaking.
Yeah, I think we traded some tweets about this last week. I get further and further away from being concerned about turf because it's become very clear to me that this new generation of soccer player of both genders are growing up on this surface, and they don't seem to care or have a preference anymore. And I've had this conversation a lot with like friends of mine who have kids that are playing at high levels for different clubs in the area. And I was in Vegas this weekend and was talking to some guys that have kids, and the general consensus is this Gen Z generation of soccer players don't give two squirts about the difference between grass and playing on a turf surface because most of them are spending the vast majority of their time playing on an artificial surface, and they're completely used to it.
Yeah, that's what Paxton said, too. He didn't care. So yeah.
I think that's fascinating because we spend so much time harping about surfaces, Portland and Seattle and the Cotton Bowl and all those things. And I Dan, is that true over in England, for example? Because I know 4G services.
Grass. No, we're able to grow grass.
Okay.
I mean, the problem here is you don't have the public soccer fields everywhere. Like we have, like my hometown's only like 300,000 people. It's glorified Frisco and Plano, and there's like 7, 8 odd facilities that are just like Moss Park.
Really fascinating.
So you don't really have unless you're playing like at a school that's just had a grant. To get an all-weather surface so they can play like field hockey and stuff all year round. You don't really play on it a ton. I mean, the biggest thing, honestly, is the quality of it now. It's not like the old-school AstroTurf. It's now, the 3G and 4G stuff is incredible. And I've definitely seen a difference growing up from playing on that occasionally as a kid and it being a little more than a carpet on some concrete to what this is. The stuff now where it's okay. Yeah, you get covered in black rubber crumb, but the ball bounce is close enough. The feel on the foot is fine. You can wear cleats or Astros or indoors or any kind of shoes. It doesn't really make a whole lot of difference now.
You can wear your trainers.
Shut up. Yeah, but it's pretty close. I mean, if they were playing every week on the kind of turf that's on, say, Dr. Pink, if you've ever played on that, it's like running across a mattress topper. Your feet get sunk into it. You start twisting around. It's not a lot of fun. But
yeah, that field
now.
That particular artificial field has a terrible history behind it. I think they've torn it up and replaced it 7 or 8 times.
They do every year.
Yeah,
they tear it up for football and then they put it back down and they put a new different layer under every time.
Yeah. Anything else we should jot or note about North Texas before we move on to the next thing?
Oh yeah, I got a couple things. I talked to some people about Jota, and Danzo, some players that we like to see stick around. It turns out that a lot of those loan contracts are structured. The deals that it's 1 year with the second team, and then basically if you're not buying them for your first team, the guy that owns them's taking them back. So they kind of had their hands tied. Hello, Dougie. They kind of had their hands tied on those two guys as much as they would have liked to have kept them for this year with North Texas. It was, they kind of were stuck. And the second thing was you'll still have a lot of the same players coming down from FC Dallas, and you'll still have some academy kids coming up. But I asked Quill about between the guys that they've cut and the guys that they might loan out and or might sell. He's expecting only about 30% of his core roster to be back, and they want to have a bigger core roster than last year. So you're looking at 70% plus new players that are going to come in. So you're talking about effectively a complete rebuild of North Texas. So it'll be interesting to see if they can do it again and see what kind of players they can find. And they got an open tryout coming up if you think you got game and get out there.
Well, they've won their championship. They have free reign in my mind to do whatever they want and do it however they want. They've got that trophy. So check mark box
yes,
marked or
indeed.
whatever. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay, let's. The other thing that we got I think this is fascinating. We got U.S. Open Cup alignments or fixtures set up, and I gotta say, I'm kind of thinking maybe I'm gonna make a trip to Denton to go check out the amateur team Rayados. That is always a great story in the Open Cup, playing up north at the Denton team.
Yeah, that's going to be a fascinating matchup because Denton uses all college players that are on their summer vacations, and effectively they'll have to rebuild their roster pretty much every summer. I mean, they might have some of the same guys come back, but they'll probably have some turnover too. And then, of course, Rayados is, as we've seen, perfectly capable of beating NPSL teams anytime they want. So despite the fact they're complete amateurs. So that's going to be a fascinating matchup. And then the other one is Vaqueros, who are now semi-pro completely and don't use college kids anymore. They're going to go to face Tulsa Athletic up on the campus at Oral Roberts. A little road trip for them. And that's a revenge chance game because Tulsa knocked them out of the third round of the playoffs last year because Tulsa won their division and Vaqueros advanced in the playoffs and then got knocked out by Tulsa. So that's a good matchup too.
Well, maybe for the Denton Diablos Rayados game, we should do a road trip. Maybe we'll all three go up together.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Well, they do play on consecutive days. I will definitely be at the Denton game though.
What do you mean they play on consecutive days?
Yeah, the Fort Worth Tulsa game's on the day before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the one up in Denton.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we'll definitely be there then. John will be there because he lives there.
I'm not driving to Tulsa. Sorry.
Oklahoma sucks. Let's be honest.
Dan, take it easy there now, Mister.
We've just lost
you are from Luton after all. You don't have a lot of room to criticize other people's places. All right. At least that's from what I'm told about Luton.
No, we're not on the list of crap towns anymore.
Are you sure about that, sir?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Towns that are bollocks.
And Oklahoma's just Texas's hat anyway.
Hey, Buzz, you know what I got in the mail this week?
A shirt?
I did, and it's awesome. Yeah. I got my. I'm waiting for Buzz to get his cease and desist letter from somebody, because that glorious full color Dallas Burn alternate logo. I think did we decide that was going to be the alternate logo that never really got used? The horse with the wing, the horse face facing you head on with the wings coming off to the side.
I only saw it ever used one time on a T-shirt in black and white. I've never seen the color one used ever. But anyway, that shirt's our number one seller T-shirt already.
You've sold 1,700 of them, I understand. Is that what you told me?
Yeah, it's 1,700.
That's Dallas season tickets.
Yeah. More than season tickets. Yeah.
It is a fantastic shirt. I love it. I can't wait to wear it. I just got it I got home from my trip and saw it. I want to share a story with you guys real quick so I went to Vegas last weekend to play in the Old Fart Cup. And that was fun and all. But running in parallel was one of the larger youth travel team tournaments called the Vegas Cup. Man, I got to tell you something. If Dan and Clark Hunt if they've only done one thing in all the time they've owned this team, they have ginned up an incredibly, let's see, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Present brand at these tournaments. I can't tell you. I saw more FC Dallas paraphernalia in Vegas in the course of 4 days than I'm not exaggerating. I saw more FC Dallas paraphernalia in 4 days in Las Vegas than I have in the Dallas-Fort Worth area walking around randomly outside of a game in the last, 5-10 years collectively. It was the number and presence of FC Dallas at this tournament was overwhelming, and I saw that logo more 4-1 compared to any other logo I saw at the tournament. It was really, really impressive.
Yeah, I think somebody told me they had 50 teams at that one tournament. FC Dallas did across all levels.
I don't know if this is the same. I don't know if this is consistent from tournament to tournament, but it is very obvious to me that the FC Dallas brand at that particular level has a lot of gravitas to it. You could see other kids from other clubs ogling kids walking around in FC Dallas stuff like, oh, there's a guy from FC Dallas or a girl from FC. Yeah, it was pretty impressive, to be honest with you.
That is impressive because that's not even an academy tournament. That's a youth tournament.
No, that's the money-making tournament.
Yeah, those are guys that are paying. The FC Dallas youth.
Yeah, man, there was a ton of them. Literally, like FC Dallas jerseys, parents in FC Dallas jerseys.
Yeah.
I saw more of those in 4 days than I've seen, walking around randomly and ever. It was really, really quite different.
I do think some of the pre-academy teams went. Some of the prior to U12 academies, some of those teams are out there too.
Yeah, I have no idea how any of them did. Hopefully they did better than my team. All right, Buzz, would you like to take a moment to promote your Patreon and other associated things that you're doing?
Well, on the website, you can of course find the way to get some T-shirts if you're interested in that groundbreaking T-shirt. And also the Patreon is going well. We have just short of 80 people supporting, which is exciting. If you like the website, what we do, if you like the podcast that we do, it's a way to support what we're doing. Like PBS, you can chime in however much money you would like. It's perfectly changeable to whatever total you would want. And we give bonus content on there for people that are patrons. Sometimes it's raw interview audio. Sometimes it's what I call the 3rd-degree burns, which is like little takes on stuff. Somebody else called them Deep Thoughts with Buzz, which I thought was funny. And
yeah, I like that one. You should permanently name it that.
Yeah, change it to Deep Thoughts with Buzz. So, it's not, we're not going to break any news on there, but it's a chance for me to go a little deeper on certain topics from day to day with people that are supporting us with their hard-earned money. And, this podcast is still happening because of the support we get, and the website still happens because of the support we get. So, patreon.com/3rd-degree. It's pretty easy to find.
All right, Dan, I apologize. I crapped on your hometown, and it's really not the proper time to do it, considering you're in last place. So my apologies. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
I don't think he took your apology seriously.
He's so sensitive, that Dan Crook.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you to you both. I appreciate your efforts and time, and I look forward to hearing more from you. And thank you, FC Dallas fan. We will speak to you next time on yet another fun-filled edition of 3rd Degree, the podcast.
Thomas Ramos.